an ease to appease the senses. That sense of self, so felt as the creation's creator, master manifester embodied. To inquire and discover the reflection of the projection's other, accessing and assessing possibility, infinite in scope, yet focused, empathically yet methodically, such as to cope with the magnificent grandeur of it all. That is, the all, becoming. With each stroke, the brush of vibrational frequency as color so chosen to ignite the senses, feelings, evoke, to draw one inward, a trip through this masterpiece as portal to spark remembrance, yet only to the degree chosen, such that knowing that which is known, that which has always been known, might be acknowledged, accepted, truly honored and honed. Greetings. Today we share with you a truly enlightening conversation with my gorgeous friend, the Artsoldier extraordinaire herself, Kamora Jones. With complete transparency, Kamora shares with us a bit of her journey of becoming through the challenges as perceived, the ways she has discovered and now lives her path, embracing her authenticity as a multidimensional individuation of the divine, and her charge to encourage the human collective in like fashion through the vehicle of her uniquely creative artistic expression. So in this moment is the invitation graciously extended. On the heels of a deep and intentional breath, settle into that sacred space of the heart and receive.
Hi, my name is Kamora Jones. I am a professional graphic artist and illustrator. I'm also a professional fine artist. I created a series called the TRANSmigration series back in 2017 that explores the infinite dimensions of consciousness, the soul, chakras, energy, and all that we are. I hope that my art speaks to people on a creative level and that I can sort of help people to find their creative path in this world where people don't see themselves as creative anymore. So I create art for my own expression. And my hope is that I can inspire myself to along my path and that I can continue learning and continue doing what I came here to do, which is to experience life as a soul having a human experience.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity to speak with you today. It's been a long time coming for us. We chatted offline many times, but to finally come together for something formal to share with everyone else, I think this is a great moment for not only us, but for everyone who will have an opportunity to visit this video, because I know a lot of nuggets are going to be shared, because when you bring two high frequency beings together, that's just kind of what happens, that's part of the sauce of what happens. So.
Right.
But before we get into discussion about your artwork, I really want to highlight your background, to share a little bit about your background so that we have an opportunity to know where it is that you've come from, how it is that you've evolved into the space that you now operate in. So give us a little bit of that, because the gist of my work is the mastery of being. And so I really want to focus on what it is to discover your authenticity and to begin to walk and operate within that space. So share with us a little bit about your background and how you've gone from there to where you are now.
Yeah, it sounds great. I started off drawing and painting when I was about 3, according to my mom. And I've been a lifelong artist. I remember putting the pencil on the paper, putting color on the paper, and realizing that this is a way for me to understand this reality frame. I didn't understand the term reality frame. I didn't understand all the philosophical terminology that goes along with it. But what I understood was that there was an interface going on between myself and my ability to analyze things around me. through my mind, through my soul, through creative expression. And I did not start off academically, artistically speaking. My family, my mom and her brothers, sisters, grandmother, her mom, they were all very religious growing up. But I remember in my younger years being very much into astronomy and kind of being into science, but not really understanding where to go with it, but very much being into artistic expression. My parents very much supported that. But all throughout my youth, mom had us like go to the Baptist church and Christian church. And then when I became 10 or 11, I was indoctrinated into the Christian church, more like Pentecostal, like West Coast Pentecostal, not like Midwest. Um, and basically, I got heavily into the study of the Bible. But all the while, I was developing my artistic skills. During high school, I went to a arts high school, which is kind of like a conservatory, sort of an arts conservatory, and that was along with my liberal arts as well. And that focused on the academic training. So we had figure drawing, life drawing, observational drawing, cast drawing, studying everything that goes into being able to see the world and analyze it analytically from an academic standpoint, drawing, painting, if you will. So I got that fundamental training in high school, but up until that point, I was exploring the world through creative expression, just through my own viewpoint of it. And so basically, you know, I'm this Christian kid. I also, when I was 7, 6, 7, 8, kind of knew that I was trans, whatever that was, but I didn't really understand what that was because the internet was just kind of becoming a thing, like in the 90s. And so I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if it was just like a weird fetish thing. I didn't know what it was. I had no support with that. And so I was this Christian. I was trying to reconcile, my identity with this Christianity thing. I was heavily into scripture. I was heavily into the study of like angels in the spiritual realm when I was a teenager. So I studied like Ezekiel's visions, Isaiah's visions, the revelation, of John. I think it was of Patmos, and all the different visualizations of things in the heavenly realm, like around the throne and such. The seraphim with I think it was like 6 wings, the cherubim with the 4 wings and the 4 faces. That was all very resonant to me. The apostle, I'll say, the apostle Paul's talk about the spiritual realm and the armor of God, this correlation between the journey and the battle, between the darkness of the self or the darkness of the devil or whatever, and the light of God. And so I came from this very sort of dualistic, very doctrinal background. As I got into my 20s, I went to an art college. Later on, got my bachelor's degree in just like graphic art and illustration. Went to work for a company that I still work for to this day. So I got my bachelor's like in my mid to late 20s. And I've been working for the same company for like 17 years doing game graphics, game design. I'm currently a manager of game art, which is kind of like an art director and art manager. So working professionally, but then also developing. So I got married. My spouse and I married 15 years ago. And we just hit our 15-year anniversary last month. And yeah, and so one of the first conversations I had with my spouse was that, hey, I think I'm trans, even though we were heavily into the church. And they explained that they didn't know what that meant, and then they did some research because they were also very sheltered. And then about 2 years, into our marriage, we decided to leave the church and kind of go on our own journey. In addition to Vi being like, hey, I'm kind of like done with this. Let's go journey. And I had a couple of friends. I had one friend in particular who was very encouraging in me exploring myself, and asking me why is it this one thing that's right? Why do you have to be that? And so it was like the universe was conspiring to help me to expand. And so we left the church, and I sort of just got out of spirituality in general for like a while, for like a couple of years. That was what, 2010 or something like that, I think it was. 2012. No, I mean that was, yeah, I mean it was a while ago. And then 2016, I started I felt this calling, like God or higher consciousness or myself, my higher self, speaking to me saying, let's get back into this. Previously to that, I had started creating a series called Socrates, which is this type of human utopian world. I have drawings in my Instagram and in my old school DeviantArt and on my website as well of some of the visualizations, concepts from Socrates. Socrates is this human utopian dimension of Earth, so to speak, where they use a lot of augmented reality, play lots of games, do all kinds of things to explore the human potential. It is also part of my Transmigration series, but if you start looking at the comic, as I do more of the comics, we'll actually see more about that. And so that was my, kind of getting out of religion and wondering, well, why aren't humans more peaceful? Why aren't we more compassionate? Why haven't we made it to that yet? Looking at it from a very sort of critical, that, why isn't Earth like this? Why isn't Earth like that? Which is probably the reason why Earth is the way it is from people looking at things critically. And so 2016, I felt this calling. I felt this, hey, let's what do you think about spirituality, Kamora? Like, what do you think? Like these questions started coming to me. And I remember somebody saying something to me about Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. And so I went ahead and read that, and that was very enlightening. And I think I had remembered reading it, some excerpts from it like previously, some excerpts from it previously, and like years before that. And that really spoke to me, this idea of, being born, of planning your life and incarnating into a body to have certain types of experiences and doing that perpetually for soul development. But also in the case of some ascribe to this idea of sort of collective development, and that God consciousness, collective consciousness is collectively developing as a result of all of our data, the result of all of our experiences being collectively put into the Akash, right? And that we are all collecting that, we are all growing from that, that God is expanding, that we could see ourselves as a collection of the sum total of God, that God as an entity that we are all connected to is continually developing as well, that there isn't just this being who knows everything that's mad at everything because they don't see, oh my God, I can't believe you guys are doing this. What are you doing? That makes God weak, in my opinion, and that doesn't make any sense. I don't see that in the universe. So I started getting these concepts. I started understanding that maybe I'm looking at it in a way that isn't congruent with who I am. And then if I look at the universe, the singularity, if you will, this turning on of the partition of the computer program, that if I started maybe seeing it that way, I could see it as this creative canvas, that the void itself is a creative canvas. And so I started learning all this. And then 2017, cannabis became legal here in Vegas. And so I'd read a bunch of stuff about from a bunch of different psychedelic individuals about cannabis and how a lot of the ancients, would eat their cannabis, they wouldn't smoke it. And so I used that as a sacrament, as sort of a tool. Yeah. So I use that as a tool to, kind of elevate my consciousness and get into sort of an altered state so that I could start maybe drawing these concepts that higher conscious, that my higher self, higher consciousness that the collective was trying to teach me. And that's how Transmigration series started. I would come home from work, I'd pop a cookie because my spouse is a really great cook and knows how to cook anything. And I'd pop a cookie and it would expand. It would open me up into other dimensions, potentiations of what is. And I just started drawing it. And so it goes all the way back to 2017. And shortly after that, like I think it was Easter Sunday, 2017, I had like a full-blown like psychedelic experience. And that was very enlightening in that it reminded me of some things I had forgotten about my past. And one thing in particular that I said that I didn't remember saying, and I don't know when I said that, maybe I said that in between lives or something. I heard it and I was like, oh yeah, I remember saying that. It was like, famous last words. Just some egotistical, arrogant stuff that I said. And I'm paying for it. I'm paying for it now. And so,
What was the thing? What did you
well,
say?
so what I heard was, I heard all this laughing, like kids, like how we do when we're hanging out having fun, right?
Yeah.
I could be, in my past, I was a bit of a party pooper.
Yeah.
And I can see how I would say this, but what I heard was all this laughing and joking around and having fun and just being content. And I heard myself in some other space say, you guys are stupid. I'm going to go be somebody. Like, you guys are dumb. I'm going to go do something. I'm going to go be somebody. I'm going to go experience something. And yeah, fine. But yeah, I understand. I understand. the error of that statement now. Or the, or just the, implications of that statement, I should say. And I
Right.
remembered it. I heard it and I remembered it. I was like, oh yeah. And so the that was on like cannabis edibles. And so cannabis edibles became sort of a, if I wanted to trip, I didn't want to do anything illegal. It's just not my thing. I didn't want to do anything illegal. So I used that as a tool. It was totally legal. And I used that as a tool. And I did it maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 times from 2017 to 2022, maybe. And every time I would eat an edible, I would trip for hours and it would open me up to the information that I needed. That said, in conjunction with that, I actually learned some tools in order to be able to connect naturally without that. And I use a lot of those tools now in order to draw a lot of the pieces from the Transmigration series. It's a type of meditation technique that I've been using since then. Yeah.
Nice. Wow. So you touched on so
Sorry.
many things. So many nuggets. There's so many things I can pull out, but I want to go back to a
Yeah,
little
go
bit
ahead.
to the beginning
Yeah,
when you were growing up and coming into this awareness, this different awareness that was different, that was counter
yeah.
to that which you were under your parents.
Hmm.
Did you have anybody that you could talk to about any of these things that you were coming into awareness of, any of these discoveries that you were making about yourself? Did you have anyone that you could share with?
Well, so the interesting thing about that is that, yeah, okay, so I had a lot of good talks with my mom as a child, having the talk with their mom about just how I felt about life in general.
Mhm.
That wasn't specific to me thinking that I'm trans or anything like that. I just felt like that wasn't the person to share that with.
Mhm.
And I felt like it would have been a mistake. And I couldn't share it with my dad. My parents are very beautiful people. But I couldn't share it with any of them because I felt like they weren't the right people to share it with. And I felt like, they wouldn't understand. And
Mhm.
I had maybe, and no, I feel like I didn't. And I think I had friends who were LGBT, I had one or two people, I went to arts high school, nothing but, alternative lifestyles and everything to
Mhm.
that degree. So I had a lot of exposure to the fact that, life can, Kamora, life can be, what you need it to be. But I also felt like they had also cultivated groups as well. And so I feel like the universe, or this experience that I signed up for, had always been showing me. When I went to college, I went to Art Institute of Colorado, Colorado Art Institute when I like right after high school in Colorado for a couple of years. I just went there for a couple of years after high school. And I my best friend, like I met her immediately, was a goth girl and a lesbian. And I'm still trying to find, I can't find her. I don't know where she is now. Maybe she doesn't want to be found, but maybe it was just for that time period, right? But we were such good friends, and she was sort of my first sort of exposure to a person in a friendship capacity who was living this very sort of alternative life, came from a small town, in Colorado, and was living this very alternative life. And she was my first sort of exposure to that. And it really wasn't until I'll say until I was getting my bachelor's, in the couple of years that I was in school getting my bachelor's, that I actually met one person in particular who was very supportive, who was just there and explained to me, well, you're eventually going to tell your parents this stuff. It's going to come out, right? But when I first went to school, like after high school, it wasn't even then I was still very Christian, and like the woman I was dating was like Catholic, and um, even then I wasn't sure I was going to come out, even though I was, presenting to myself in private, so to
Mhm.
speak, as much as I could. No, I feel like, yeah, artistically, I had a lot of people to talk to. I was always surrounded by artists.
Mhm.
My mom is also very a creative person, not an artist in the sense of drawing and painting, but she was always a very spiritual,
Mhm.
albeit very Christian, but also very spiritual person who had a very creative consciousness. And so I could always, she was always extremely encouraging of my artistic development and
Yeah.
always put me in classes. And my dad too. My dad also assisted me and helped me in putting me in classes and stuff like that. So, and then I
Right.
had other mentors who were kind of just in different aspects of the world. Like I had some mentors who were police officers. When I was very young, my mom had me in this program where we had mentors, and two of these guys were police officers. And that was really interesting too. They were Black men,
Yeah.
and that was pretty cool. Like they were these cool individuals who had had these whole lives of all kinds. I mean, so what I had was, and then there was the Black community here in Vegas where,
Mhm.
they had like, different, they had different gatherings and such. I also taught at the Art Center, this West Las Vegas Art Center, for a couple of years in my 20s. And that was like a cultural center. So there's all kinds of stuff going on there. So there's all these very cool, creative, artistic people within the Black community who are doing lots of really awesome alternative stuff as well. And so I feel like it was all set up to where even though I didn't have that person to confide, I had friends, right? But I didn't have that person I felt like I could confide in with my core identity elements. Um, there were I was always around a lot of creative people. I always had a lot of creative friends, a lot of artistic friends who were trying to help me figure out what I wanted to do with my art. I feel like the gradation into where I am now has been very gradual and purposeful. And then in my teenage years, getting heavily into the Christian Bible and getting into it from the spiritual and mystical stuff, and then having people kind of be like, you're not supposed to be focusing in on that. You're focusing in on the wrong stuff. You're not doing it. You're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. But also themselves speaking in tongues, speaking light language, right? And casting out demons and doing all this spiritual stuff. It's like, do you guys even understand like what this is about? Like what you're saying, what this doctrine is saying? Like they're talking about this whole spiritual reality outside of that. So I feel like the gradation was actually really good. I feel like it was very purposeful. And eventually I have tons of support now. My boss was supportive. Like when I came out in corporate, my boss was extremely supportive. And that's a cool whole story that we can talk about some other time. So I feel like, from a consciousness standpoint, everything was very ordered properly, retrospectively, right? As I look at this, it's all good. It's all
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
It's interesting because what I've found in retrospect is that you are guided. You don't even know you're being guided into opening up your consciousness yourself, right? It's like
Yeah.
you giving yourself the breadcrumbs. So
Yes.
like you, it was like through your art. Your
Yes.
art was critical. It was a pivotal piece in
Yes.
expanding your own consciousness. And that's how you got a chance to express that and
Yes.
question and learn more. It was you walking you into a greater awareness of yourself. Yeah,
Yes. I
that's
think
interesting.
I think William Blake says something about creating your own system. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact quote, but he says something about creating your own system, or you're going to be, a slave to mankind, to man. It's like
Yeah.
so, artistic expression. One of the things that I find baffling, and that I am actually actively critical of, is people who feel this disconnection with their creative self.
Mhm.
And I understand that society is in a place where science is discovering more about the universe and our place in it from a very reductive materialist standpoint. And so we are producing children and people who are very sort of objective in their
Mhm.
perspectives, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that artistic expression doesn't have the same, energy it had back in the early 80s, in like the New York
Mhm.
art scene and like all the stuff that came out of that, or the Harlem Renaissance, right? Or
Mhm.
any of those great, expressionistic movements. The movements during the 1800s, you had like the pre-Raphaelites who were trying to kind of go back to the classical ideas, in art and in
Mhm.
literature. And then you had the different Renaissance movements, and then you had other movements in other cultures of
Yeah.
artistic expression, right?
Yeah.
And so we're finding ourselves in a very objective society, and artists still exist. We still exist. We still draw and paint. I still draw and paint on paper and on
Mhm.
canvas and digitally, drawing digitally. But I think AI is like very indicative of this sort of idea that things should be objective and analytical and up for peer review, that everything should be up for criticism. And that
Mm.
just isn't what artistic expression or life in general, in my opinion, it is about, fundamentally speaking. It
Right.
is about the experience of the individual. And it's not about perfection. It's not about something looking perfect. It's not about something looking, you know, ideal. It really is about the experience. And as you said, you don't know, you can't remember what you planned. The amnesia is good. The amnesia is a good game. because it's gonna put you up against, it's like script writing. If you ever do script writing, is you're trying to put your characters through the gauntlet. Okay, you're trying to break your characters, break yourself, kind of.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do, because it's through that breaking process that you become who you are. Yeah.
Right, right.
And then once you become who you are, then you realize, oh, I'm still becoming.
Yeah, this is part of you becoming you and you embracing you. And I think one thing you said was the should. This should be this,
Yeah.
but there are no shoulds,
Right.
right?
That's right.
There are no shoulds. There are
That's
only
right.
shoulds when you are trying to live up to or align with the standard that's been set outside of you, right?
Right.
Yeah, there are no
That's right.
shoulds.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and then nobody else can validate you. And I think that comes into honoring who it is that you are, but
Yeah.
allowing yourself, giving yourself the space to discover what that is.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can align with the truth of that. Right. So now at this point where you are, all of your family has aligned with where it is that you are and what it is that you do. Is that the case now?
I mean, kind of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. My mom is very religious. My mom is still very Christian religious, right?
Yeah.
My dad is actually very religious now. He was not in my youth. And
Yeah.
he's very, but he's very supportive. I had a show at a local gallery here, a solo show. The gallery owner and I had been talking for a while, and she had space, and so we got it in there. He came to the show. He'd never really come to one of my shows within my adulthood. And he was like blown away. He's like, first of all, this is like a lot of work, and it's not a small gallery. Secondly, he was genuinely asking me about the pieces. And I was able to relate to him. And we have this relatability that I think I hadn't really seen since, I'd been doing the Christian art in my youth, which actually really spoke to him at the time that I was doing it. And so this being more metaphysical, gosh, I was able to, because I still have a very positive view of what God is, but a more expansive view. It is not a linear, crunched down in a box view like a lot of doctrines have gotten. Not all, but my view of God is so creative and expansive, and it's not anything like I've heard, other than the Bhagavad Gita. Like, I think the Bhagavad Gita has a really interesting view of God. But yeah, I mean, I had this connection with him. My older sister, I have two older sisters. My older sister is very, very supportive, although she's very analytical. She's a scientist. And then my middle sister's always been very supportive as well. And then my nieces, nephews, and they're all very supportive. It's a different generation, and then my spouse is the most supportive. So, and then I have peers, professional peers in my corporate job, some of whom are very supportive, some of who just don't get it because they're not into that theme. And then I have peers within the metaphysical realm who are like, oh yeah, that's it. So there's a stratification. Some are, some aren't. And I think it's always perfect for my development. The level of support, the level of understanding, the lack of understanding, the criticism of the work, all of it is very good for me.
Yeah. How do you handle the criticism? That's a great question, because a lot of people don't get into things like this because they don't want to be exposed to that criticism. So how have you managed to develop that thick skin so that you aren't so impacted by the criticism negatively?
I mean, it depends on the day, right? Like, I mean, some days, the skin is like a thin.
You have your moments. Yeah.
I have my moments. But it's not, look, it's not about that. I understand that, and some people have told me, hey, it's not their thing. Some people are like, well, why do you do that? So like, I have academic training. This is actually a good example. I have academic training, so I can draw photorealistically. I can draw like you as you are. Like that's my academic training. Okay.
Okay.
And so I'll do that every once in a while just to appease some of my people who are close to me. And then at my day job, like I make games, so we work in the style of the game. So my stuff at my day job looks absolutely nothing like my Transmigration series. Transmigration series is something you have to be, you're a professional. So those games can look super cartoony, they can look super stylistic, they can look, so my thing is this. some of my peers, some of my professional art peers will look at my work and they'll be like, well, why are you doing that? Like you can draw photorealistically. Why don't you just draw photorealistically? And it's like,
Yeah.
because that's not what that is. That is a very specific type of expression and energy. But even explaining that, it doesn't really mean much to people who are sort of fixed in what they want. And so I have to accept the fact that that person's just not going to respect my metaphysical art. As far as people who like it, I mean, they like it for all kinds of different reasons. Some people don't even like it because of the visuals. Some people like it just because of the energy and the message. Some people just like the writing because I write too, you know. So some people just like the writing. Some people like the art. Some people like my voice. Oh, I love your voice. Oh, like you know, so art. There was a famous critic who said that, you know, the purpose of contemporary art is to crap on the art that came before it. So in that, yes, there are plenty of people who don't like the transmigration art, and that's okay because there's all kinds of reasons they don't like it or don't connect with it. The focus of the contemporary artist is to focus in on creating and not worrying about what people say. And then, you know, connecting with the people who do connect with it, which it is a very niche, the transmigration art is a very niche upon within a niche kind of expression of art and of language and of codes, right? And it's very much a result of where I've been and who I am and the higher dimensional energies I've learned to connect with. And so it's purposeful, which means that, yes, I have to be open to criticism, just like how I am at my day job. At my day job, it's all peer review, right? I have to be open to it, but I don't focus in on it because it can be reductive
Right.
and it can stop me from seeing the value in it because there is a sort of smaller, maybe cross section of society who's into what I'm exploring. Yeah, so I have to be focused. Yeah, sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. I think it speaks to you. It's about what desires to flow through you.
Yeah,
What desires to be expressed through God presenting as Kamora, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And to acquiesce to the criticism would be to diminish that to a great degree. Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now let me tell you this. When I first started opening up, I would go down in my living room at night, when everybody's asleep and the house is quiet, and I would meditate. And I
Mhm.
had this one instance where I was meditating, and they took me through this whole experience. So my body laid itself down, and my hand was up over my body doing something, moving energy or something. And I had my eyes closed because I was trying my best not to be afraid, but it was like one of those situations where you probably most people would have been
Right,
afraid, but I was
right.
trying not to be afraid. But my eye peeped, and when my eye peeped open, I saw this hand, this luminescent hand over this giant, this really huge hand over my body, moving energy, and I just closed my eyes really, really fast and came back to myself. And so
Yeah.
one day I happened to be online and I came across a piece of your art, and it was this light being, this outline of this light being, and it was like almost exactly what I saw
Oh,
when
wow.
I had that peep open. And I think that
Oh.
was one of the t-shirts that you had drawn, because I ended up buying that shirt where you have the light being and the hands are like this.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
wow.
so I was curious, how do you know where your inspiration is coming from? Do you know where that stream of consciousness is filtering through? Like, I know it's coming from source, but is there a filter that you feel aligned to, like a specific group that you feel aligned to in terms of your work?
So my second experience, my second psychedelic experience, I saw this different place and it felt like I'd been there. Like maybe I used to live there or something. I don't know. There's a specific type of identity, these personalities, kind of maybe like the beings I draw. Maybe they feel very intelligent, very sort of elevated, like they've sort of figured things out, you know, on their planet or their world or whatever. I feel like they're very connected to source. Um, I feel like it's very pure and childlike. A lot of the experiences that I've had that are very connected it strips away my ego that I've developed as a human. It takes me back to my core space, and I actually felt it this morning preparing for this, and it feels very pure, in a childlike wonder kind of way. It is separate from this rat race modality, in that it isn't even a factor in that energy space, because it's all about oneness in that space. During one of my experiences, I experienced this type of motherboard, but it was a motherboard as in motherboard, our space of oneness. And it freaked me out because it felt like a nursery, and that nursery is cultivating, like growing in your mother's womb. I had another experience where I was connected to this umbilical. I felt like a child, and then there was a partnering experience that went along with that. Right after, it was very visual. It was like I could see it, and there was a grid, and at each intersection of the grid there was a symbol, and there was this like elementary music playing with it. So super freaky, but it was also kind of like explaining to me like, this is who you are. It's not only is it not difficult, all of this, you are connected to all of this. And it is elementary and it is fundamental. It is elementary school. You're in elementary school. You're a child. So the last experience that I had, the last sort of psychedelic, uh, sacramental space that I was in, I saw them, and there were two of them, and they were appealing to each other. One was just like reaching up to the other, like, hey, can we do this? Can we figure this out? Very much like the beings I draw. And then there was another space where they were showing me that we are these, souls are like these small, I'm huge in my potential, but I am this small component of an infinitely fractally large whole, which also makes me feel very much like a child, and like a stupid child in a sense. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just all of these things have sort of shown me that, Kamora, like, you're expanding. You're a baby, you're expanding. Yeah. And so it all feels very pure. I remember before I even got on this path, I had this dream. It was back in my 20s, I think it was, where there was this space. I don't know if it was like a cave or there was this cave or like an industrial space or something. And there were these beings, they were like light beings. Okay. And they were like these wisps. I mean, maybe they were seraphim. I don't know, but they were these structures. They looked organic, but they also looked geometric. And then there was this vehicle. It was like a light vehicle. Like it was like this type of Tron-like, but it wasn't Tron-like. It wasn't digital. It felt very organic. So it was very sort of a organism of higher consciousness, and it felt alive. And the vehicle itself had a type of energy attached to it. So all these spaces that I've been in are very humbling, and they make me feel like the child that I am, the soul on a journey. Every single one of them, and they're all very humbling, and it's always very it's not scary at all. It's just, there was this light, and it was like a planet or like a universe. I study astronomy, so it was like both. And it was this light, and there were rings around it, and it was ever present within my space. It was sort of explaining to me, not through words, but purely through energy, that, Kamora, like, I'm with you. We're one. There's no separation. This is just a simulation. This is just a thing that you guys want to do for some reason. You can come back here and hang with us. It's kind of like, that's kind of the energy that I've experienced. So I feel like the group is I feel like there are two things. I feel like it's source itself, and then I feel like there's a group of intelligent beings who are light workers kind of in a scientific kind of way, which is
Interesting.
probably why I draw the beings the way that I draw them. But I feel like they're kind of scientific, but scientific within their metaphysical science paradigm that they're in, and that they're
Interesting.
connected with source, and they have this weird technology that's just source driven. They figured out the Akashic records, how that works, how the system works. They figured out how karma is tied into that. Karma as like a algorithm, right?
Mhm.
And so it's just this energy that's weird on the outside looking in, but in general, it's like, no, like we're all a part of it.
Right. Do you feel like those are aspects of you?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I mean, if I look at it from a very analytical point of view, I would say that this is all that I am, is what I'm experiencing is all that I am. And I'm just accessing that. And because I hadn't been accessing that for a good majority of my youth, in more of a conscious way, right?
Mhm.
Conscious mind-wise, and conscious analytically speaking, it's a little disorienting, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
But with every succeeding experience, it's less disorienting. And when I draw and paint these things, there is definitely a connection going on and a unification with the truth of who I am, not just this facade I maybe have to put in sometimes during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm curious because I channel these light codes.
Hmm.
Well, my guys call them songs now because they're collections of light codes. So they come through kind
Yeah.
of like this, right?
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
These code
Yeah.
things, right?
Wow, that's
And
beautiful.
I can interact with them. I have this whole process for how I integrate those things. They can come through when I vocalize, and they can come through as spoken light language, or they come through as songs, or they just come through as just this emanation of frequency, just silently emanated frequency. When your paintings come through, do you have a process for working with those and integrating those pieces as they come in? And like, are you able to integrate them to the point where you can, in your mind, internalize a message
Yeah.
that they may be sending forth? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that process for you?
So the process for me, what I was able to develop during the sort of infancy of my current paradigm is this thing where I close my eyes, I look into the void, and I detach myself from the physical organism, so to speak. It's a type of creative attachment. I don't think I don't think it's like astral projection in a traditional sense. That it's more of a let's separate so that we can get pure information, pure download. And so I see myself as a point of consciousness. I did a lot of martial arts back when I was young too, so that kind of helped with this. So I see myself as this point of consciousness. And then from that point, I ask a question. Sometimes it's a specific question. Usually it's just I need information, is what I say. And the information that comes forward, and I'm already locked into a channel, so I'm already turned to a specific channel, right? Because I'm doing this specific type of beings, this specific type of energy. And I'll just ask for data. I'll ask for information. And what I usually get is a shadowy type of image, sort of compositional, in its structuring of how things should be composed. And as I begin to draw and paint, sometimes the image is very, very clear what I need to draw and paint. And this goes, interestingly enough, like as I think about it, relative to 2016, 2017, when I look back all the way into my childhood, I've always kind of been able to do this. And so it's this idea of pulling an image, grabbing an image, if you will, grabbing the energy. And then as I start drawing, the message becomes clear. Sometimes I even get the title of the message first. And sometimes I actually get the words first. But the codes that I draw have the components, the data, like the bits of information embedded in them. And then the sum total of the vibration or of the acoustics of all the codes together are what create the environment in which the person can, sort of bask in. Yeah.
That's it. That's interesting. So do you find yourself, are you familiar with automatic writing?
Yes.
Do you find
Mhm.
yourself doing automatic writing as you create a lot of
Yeah.
times?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of, that you're doing it
Yeah.
too. It's kind of a
Yeah.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
I do feel like, because there have been many famous, people who've come out, in the art world who talked about automatic writing and stuff. I do feel like it's purposeful. To me, having that sort of artistic, academic background, I feel like even something like automatic writing, I feel like there's purpose in it. I feel like there's purpose in it analytically, in that even if you're trying to expel some type of energy out into the material realm, through graphite or whatever you're doing it through. I feel like that's purpose. But I also feel like when you're connected to a specific channel, um, there is each curve and each angle have a bit of the energy of the
Mm.
message. And so even if it's just for you, the term automatic is almost like, I don't think it's reductive. I just think it's maybe a little misguided, that term. Me
Let's
personally.
call it divinely inspired writing,
Right. Just
or
me personally. I actually like the
yeah,
term automatic writing, but
yeah.
it's like the term God, or it's like the term
It's like any
consciousness.
English
It's like
word, or
any
it's like any word, right?
Yeah, right.
Right.
So I feel like it's all very purposeful, but I feel like when you get a full like composition of a code structure onto your paper,
Mhm.
that has music, that has a sound, it has a vibration, it has a pulse to it.
It
And
does.
drawing in general, you know this because you draw and paint. Drawing
Mhm.
in general, it doesn't matter what you're drawing and painting, you have the core energy of the image and what the artist put into it itself. It's like listening to music. Listening to music, you are eating that energy. And so as you eat that energy, you're going to respond. Your mind's going to respond. Your body's going to respond. Your soul's going to respond to what you just ate. Yeah, so what you're putting in, is what you're putting in. People are going to access that and they're going to get what you put in. So there is something about intention. When I try to work on my pieces, I try to keep myself as positive as possible. I can't always do it. I try to keep the energy exchange between what I'm connected with as clean as possible so that what I embed in the message can be received from all the people who are going to receive it. Because
Right. I
it's
love that.
medicine. Yeah.
I love that analogy of eating it because that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. You're
Yeah.
consuming it, like,
Yeah.
and so my whole thing has been getting out of the way. I don't really try to containerize anything as much anymore. If I put a label on it, I leave the label as general as I possibly can because I feel
Nice.
like what moves through me as a vessel is going to touch people in the way that they need to be touched, in the way that meets them in the moment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So in that way, you are really an open conduit. You are the instrument through which source can move, right? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I agree. And I've told this to people before. I don't really feel like the work is hard. And so I'm gonna say it like that because I think that people can understand that, right? I feel like number one, like I've trained for a long time, and so I do this professionally. So there's one aspect of that from a purely mechanical drawing or painting something. But also, I don't know, man, like when I'm in the flow, like I get this thing done and I'm like, oh wow, how'd that happen? Yeah. I'm like, that was interesting that that came out like that. Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I don't think it's not hard. But I think the reason it's not hard is because source, or you as source, is using all of you, all of the
Yeah,
skills that you've accumulated over your entire lifetime and even the lifetimes before or
right,
in the eternal now, right? It's
right,
using all aspects of the multidimensionality that
right,
is you to
right.
bring forth something within this space. So when you surrender to that, it's not difficult because all
Yeah,
of you is being utilized. You aren't efforting. And this
yes,
is like where I am. It's like I'm not efforting at all. Everything is
right,
about grace and ease. I'm
right,
surrendering. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
It's it's fine. I try to tell people, everybody's using AI right now. And these people, oh, did you try the new version of Chat GPT? I'm like, have you like tried to like put a pencil on paper and just kind of gone for it
Yeah.
without criticism, without the need to make it look like Naruto or something. Like, have you like just tried to like just sit and channel your energy, receive it, let it flow through, receive it, let it flow through your body, through the soul, through the body, out through the hands, or whatever you use to draw paint with, right? Your feet,
Right.
whatever, your
Yeah.
mouth, right? Your hands through notation, your hands through drawing, your mouth through poetry, through writing, right? Your mind through all of it. Have you ever just tried and just sat there and just let it do what it wants to do with you? Let it
Right.
control, let it use you, be a conduit, be a vessel. Uh, there was something so um, primordial in that in regards to our connection with Source.
Right.
And I
Because
don't
we
have
are
to
so,
be,
yeah.
yeah, I don't have to be that,
Right.
I don't have to be that in control. Like I really don't. But if I, but there's a part of it that's like, yeah, build up your skill set. Try to,
Yeah.
maybe you take some classes, so that your body, because this is a car, this is a body, this is a
Right.
vessel, it's a tool to use. So maybe your tool would have a little more to work with to
Yeah,
give you more power.
right, right.
Yeah,
That's a great perspective. Now, here's a
yeah,
question for you.
yeah, yeah,
I found my process has been always been meditation, has been one of
yes.
my processes, right? And so now I've incorporated Qigong. Since I'm here in Florida now, I'm always outside now. And so I've really gotten into the habit of getting up in the morning, going outside in my backyard and I call it greeting the sun. So I'm going outside doing Qigong and I just allow my body to be moved by the energy, surrendering to that primordial flow of energy that is, right?
Right,
Allowing that to
right,
just take place. That is the way that I cultivate my own energy and connection to the unified field, to the oneness. What
right.
has been your process? What have you found works best for you in cultivating that ability to allow the energy, the frequency that is sourced to flow through you?
Well, I like I mean, whenever I'm able to do it, I really like the sun's energy reflecting off the moon, actually.
Mm,
And there's something about the moon reflecting the light of the sun as a type of portal that helps me connect with my past
mm,
or my past, present, future
yeah.
self. There's something about the light that turns something on for me. So there's that. There's also the my technique that I use, the void technique that I use, which is closing
Mhm.
the eyes and the separating from the self. There's also music as well. I listen to a lot of jazz and experimental, expressionistic jazz, experimental music as well. I listen to some new age, mystical, metaphysical music as well. But
Mhm.
there's always something about the vibrations in that. But for me, mostly it's really about sitting still, receiving, and then getting my pencil on the paper, my stylus on the screen, whatever it is, and allowing myself to explore non-critically. That's
Mm,
been such a huge component of this character, Kamora, that I'm playing right now.
yeah,
It's just been a very big part of it, right? And through
yeah,
that, the more I receive, the capacity to which I can allow myself to let go is sometimes the capacity to which I can receive something maybe I haven't done before, that I haven't expressed before, that, shall I
yeah,
say, my body hasn't expressed before. And
yeah.
those are usually the pieces where people are like, oh crap, where did that come from? But usually, like those breaks that I take, like if that's a piece that takes me a couple days, or even if that's a piece that takes me like 6 hours, or even if that's a piece that takes me like 3 hours or something,
Yeah,
I'm usually exhausted after that. My body's usually like, what are you doing to me? Because there's a lot of energy kind of flowing through this little vessel. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How do you feel people are most impacted by your art?
Um, in all kinds of different ways. I feel like I receive a lot of messages and people say a lot of things, and
Yeah.
I think it's all kinds of different ways for all kinds of different reasons. I've had plenty of people say, "Oh, I just had this experience and I witnessed those beings that you draw." Or, "Oh, I've always witnessed those beings." And so
Yeah.
I think there's like a connectivity,
Mhm.
and a couple people have said, this makes me feel sane, um, which, doesn't, I don't feel crazy when I look at your heart. And other people are like, wow, the codes, the energy that's coming through is just very resonant. And it's peaceful and it just feels really good. It feels like really good energy. And that's always makes me feel good because I think as a race of beings purely from a evolutionary standpoint. I think we should be more peaceful. That's just my personal opinion. But like and then there's a lot of people that like the art, they like the technical aspects of the art, the drawing, the lines, the curvilinear technique that I use, the compositional techniques that I use for these pieces, which I consider more like energy portals than standard art pieces. And then there's other people who are very fascinated by it. They're interested in the mystical and the mysteriousness of it as well. And there was a peer that worked at my company for one art professional corporate art peer who he really liked my work. Like he didn't really understand it. He's like, oh wow, like I want to do some stuff like that. And he tried to draw his own like metaphysical work, and it looked completely different, of course, because it should. And it was different. And I think he still didn't understand that. Um, he didn't understand that what I was connecting with and what a person connects with is what they are going to be able to express. He just wasn't looking at it. He was looking at it from more of a, I think number one, he was like a little competitive. So he's looking at it from a competitive standpoint. But he was also looking at it like, oh, I can do that. But what he was getting was very different. It was very much in line with some of the other painters that I've seen, some of the, so it's also educational to some too, for those who are interested in energy work and interested in the artistry and the artistic aspects of what one could do with light language or with energy work. So I don't know. I'm just a channel, and I'm always amazed by other people's work as well. There are plenty of people creating metaphysical energy, light work, light language work, doing incredible work. The pieces you showed me of your work are exquisite. They're really
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. Now, do you call the symbols, the symbols and the symbology coded within a lot of your artwork, do you call that light language? Do you refer to that as light language? Do you feel that that is light language?
I feel like that's a good. I always like that term. I remember when I
Yeah,
first heard that term, I thought it was relevant. I like light code. I
yeah,
think
okay.
because it feels more what I'm channeling feels more systematic. Uh,
Okay.
so in the sense of the way it was explained to me through, I feel like pulling together things that I have experienced during my different experiences, and when I channel to draw, whatever, it always
Mhm,
comes to me. I feel like this voice is speaking to me that it's kind of like the language of consciousness, so to
mhm.
speak. So if God created a program, if God uses a type of programming, a type of coding language to create this reality frame, what would that look like? And I think that's kind of what it's representing,
Yeah,
representatively speaking, conceptually speaking. Yeah.
gotcha. Do you feel that those light codes have an impact on the DNA or the field within which we exist?
I do in the sense that I feel like feeling and stress and things that impact the biology of the body, like stress itself is literally a killer in different forms, right? But positivity is also a healer in many ways. I feel like it impacts it in that way. I'm not, I'm very sort of, uh, I don't want to mislead anybody. So I'm analytical in the sense that, if something helps you and it's positive and it doesn't hurt anybody, I think that's really great for your for your mind health. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I feel like there are things like art and like light codes and like energy and visuals and music that can literally heal you in your experience. And I feel like that is just as important as biology. Um, staying in the game of having a human experience, right? And
Right.
not losing your body. Yeah, I feel like light codes, drawing art, light energy art, anything that channels higher consciousness, anything that can speak directly to the soul and sort of get through the barrier of the mind, of the constructs of the mind, is healing to the mind and therefore is healing to the body in the sense that it will help the individual to continue to figure out what they want. And I'm working on that right now with a therapist. I'm
Yeah,
working on what I want right now, and I'm trying to
gotcha.
figure out what that ideal life would look like. Haven't quite figured it out yet, but we'll get there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So here's another question for you. I have discovered that if something's going on with me, I can utilize my ability to bring through those light codes, to bring through frequency, to basically work on myself, right? Do you utilize your ability to draw and paint and channel through higher frequency in that way? Have you found a similar way to utilize it for yourself? Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes. When I create my transmigration art, I'm saying
yeah,
mine, and it doesn't really belong to me, but my interpretation of it.
right.
Yeah, I feel really great. Um, it's so healing. It feels natural. It feels like exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it feels like that is if I had a religion, that is my religion in a sense, in that but even beyond that, because religion is kind of a systematic kind of thing, it's a practice of, I do this, I do that, I do this, I say Hail Mary, whatever. Even beyond that, I feel like it's a representation of my unique connection with Source. My unique connection with Source and your unique connection with Source are very unique connections with Source. And so I get my mind gets healed. My perspective gets refined when I create my transmigration art. It explains to me, it's like I don't really like violence. I'll watch a movie that has violence in it, if it has a good story. Like, so okay, it's violent because they're trying to take down the bad guys or somebody's trying to survive. Fine. But I actually don't like violence, like at all. And when I tell people this, they're always baffled by it. Oh, really? Like that's what I like about the shows. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't really think that that's the way things need to be handled. Nor do any of those shows, those fake ass shows,
Right.
nor do they need to do like that's not necessary. You can do whatever you want. It's your life. That's your
Right.
experience. But it's not necessary. You're creating that. That doesn't actually exist. Even if you're
Right.
doing a biopic, or some. I was watching that like Griselda, that Netflix thing.
Yeah.
That's not how it went down. You didn't have a camera. You didn't follow that person around or those people around.
Yeah.
So you're making up a fantasy. So fantasy is a way to go about it. So yeah, when I'm creating, mm, it's healing.
I don't do violence either. I can't even watch football anymore. And I can't watch sports, period, anymore because I mean I was like a major Sunday on Sundays.
Huh?
Like I spent the entire day watching football. I can't even do
Oh
that
wow.
anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. I
I'm not
watch
into
no
sports.
sports.
I'm not into sports at all. Like I was
Yeah.
into like martial arts when I was younger.
Yeah.
Um, I was super like athletic like in my youth. Like
Yeah.
I didn't play sports per se, but I was into martial arts and I was really into like refining my body. Um,
Hmm.
I still like that. I haven't done as much in years because I'm really into my craft, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, I love the athleticism. I think it's amazing that if that's your life focus, and you're putting that into building the body and into the mind aspects of building the body, I think that's so beautiful and it's so indicative of higher consciousness expressing itself, in a very specific kind of, in specific kinds of ways, right? No different than
Yeah.
creating art and leveling up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else because I think we've touched on all of our points. Is there anything else that you would like to share, or anything else that you would like to ask or discuss, or anything?
Yeah. I just want to encourage people I understand that life can be really difficult. You can come from circumstances where you don't have a lot of support. You don't have a lot of support for your craft, for who you are, who you want to be, who you know you are. But there is a thing called aptitude. I don't hear people using the term aptitude as much anymore. Maybe I'm just not listening to the right stuff, but aptitude is a very interesting term in that it implies natural ability or potential for natural ability or potential for work. And if you have an aptitude, a potentiation for something, you could do that thing if you just take the time and develop it. And so even if you don't have supportive parents or you're maybe, you grew up in the foster system and you feel like you didn't have support from whatever family you're with or from the system itself, there's always time to cultivate that thing that's within. You know it's something important because it's inside of you. It's like a creature living inside of you that has its own life and it needs to express itself. You connect with it. It is natural. You feel it and you feel an accountability to it. And so with something like art, drawing, painting, whatever it is, you got to take some classes. You got to maybe take some training things. You should cultivate it. And then beyond that, there is the philosophical aspect of that talent. your connection with higher consciousness, your connection with whatever it is you're connected to that inspires you to do that kind of thing, because different artists are doing different things with their work. So you may not be a metaphysical artist. You may be a photorealist. You may like to go in out and paint the details of the, southwestern landscape, or you may be into the Midwest, or you may be into painting people. You may be into the psychology of the human soul through the visualization of the person. There are a lot of really amazing realists who see painting the face, see painting the body figuratively as a form of spirituality. And so I think it's important to consider what it is you connect with that you love. Some would say, what you've been doing since your youth, and to take it seriously, and some people say don't take life seriously. No, no. I mean, you're here for all kinds of different reasons, in addition to exploring some work, some energy, some development, like a Pokemon leveling up, right?
Yeah.
You can level up, within a human life and within your soul construct and within collective consciousness. So see, there's different levels of leveling up. There's different fractals of leveling up. So the moment you start seeing it as this, I'm not going to do that. That's for chumps. That's for suckers. You don't got to do that. You don't got to take that. Don't take that so seriously. Like people say stuff like that. That's reductive. That is reductive to your development. And so cultivate it. Think about what you love. Develop it. Even if you feel like you're too old, you want to play sports or something, you're too old, right? What aspect of that could you be involved in? There are many aspects of athleticism and sports you could be involved in as a middle-aged person who maybe can't compete anymore. There are lots of things. As far as art is concerned, just drawing and painting, you can start drawing and painting right now. It doesn't matter if you're 60, okay? It doesn't matter if you're 70, 80, as long as you can have a tool to wield, you can do it. And so my primary message within my work, I feel like as an incarnated being in my current, ever-present state, alongside my others that are doing what they're doing, is to just say that there is work for you and it's your work. And you don't have to think of it as work. You can think of it however you want. But what is it you need to do to come into your most authentic self? And I would challenge you, but I would also encourage you to explore it, because you may find that it's as natural as breathing for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fantastic. I have to tell you, it's something that I've always known is that if an idea comes to you and you allow it, the universe has a way of walking you into the realization of that, of the fulfillment of that idea, if you just surrender to it. And
Right.
by virtue of that, I built 5 motorcycles with no experience.
Wow.
Surrendering to that, trusting that the thing that I would need to know, my guides would bring to me, and then that they would bring to me the people who could serve as mentors or, those info experts, subject matter experts, That's just how life works, right? You just surrender to the all. The creation already knows what you want. You just have to surrender to it.
That's awesome. Oh my God. Opening up, surrendering to it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the best. You
Yeah.
said it. You said it the best. Yeah, that's
Wow.
it. That's
That's
it right there.
great.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Awesome. So this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for this conversation, because I felt like we got into a bunch of things that are related to your artwork, but really more related to you, the individual, which I think is fantastic. I think you're a phenomenal artist, and I'm so happy that we finally got a chance to connect on camera. And to be able to share something with everybody else. So yeah, this is great. So thank you so much for agreeing to join me and for being so authentic, and and just for sharing a bit of your space with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored, and I appreciate you immensely, Angela. You're incredible.
As you have received, shall we invite you to breathe, taking a moment for reprieve, to acknowledge and accept the grand truth which presents, shared by few who possess the insight of the foresight, which is somehow hindsight in the presence of the eternal now. there is more. So much more than you have known heretofore. There is a grand vastness which awaits, yet fully loves and supports us collectively, even as we hesitate. Beyond physical perception, there is a knowing, an isness that moves, lives, and breathes within this. Omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent behind the scenes, comprising the fullness of all that we are and our potential to be. This is as we are, the oneness, the living rhythmic pulse of the heart of all that is. Expansion and contraction through incessant inhale and exhale of the cosmic breath of the all. Presently focused, light as form, so termed human, within the care of our great Mother Gaia, with roots extending to the depths of her nurturing crystalline core, branches reaching into the cosmos toward the heavens forevermore, while simultaneously roots anchor to the source, ever informing, growing to gain awareness. As soul, divine essence branches out in all directions, permeating our reality, discovering through experience the fullness of all that we be, such that the all might eternally become potential and realization through the harmonically balanced instrument as sung. This is us. Upon each impulse, consciously and unconsciously received, in the silent stillness is the voice heard. Who are we? What are we? Remember.